Now, let's get started by learning a little bit more about HTML. What exactly is it, and how do we use it to create websites? Now, no matter what browser you like to use, Chrome or Firefox or any other, all of these applications do the same thing. They take different files such as HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and they render them into a website. But even though most modern websites are created using these three different file types combined together, you can't create a website with just a CSS file or just a JavaScript file. However, you can have just an HTML file, and in fact, that's exactly what the first websites were created with. HTML defines the content and structure of the website. So for example, in this case, all that my HTML file does is it renders a heading that says my website. And when this file is opened by the browser, it will display that heading saying my website. Now, what exactly is HTML? Let's break it down. So HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. If we look at the first part, hypertext, what does that mean? Well, it refers to pieces of text which can link to other documents in the website. So these pieces of text are hypertext or hyperlinks, and they are the foundation of how an HTML website works. Now, if we take a look at the world's first website created by Sir Tim Berners-Lee, who also happens to be the inventor of the internet, then you can see it's filled with these hyperlinks marked in blue. And exactly as you would expect, if you click on any of these hyperlinks, it takes you to another document, another HTML file. So if we go back, you can see that we were on project.html. And if I click on one of the hyperlinks, then it will take me to another HTML file. And this is how hypertext works. And there's even a link on this website explaining exactly what hypertext is. So now that we know what hypertext is, what about the other part, the markup language? What is a markup language? Well, if you look at the English language, we often see a little bit that function very similar to markup, like these double quotes. The presence of these quotation marks is what tells a reader that this part is a quotation. And as you'll find, this is going to be really similar. And this whole idea of markup language comes from the days when the editors used to review manuscripts and mark them up to show certain things. For example, which parts that need to be bold and which parts that need to be bold by adding a curvy line underneath, and which parts need to be italic by underlining it for emphasis. So, how do you do markup with HTML? Well, it's done through what's called HTML tags. Now, in the early days of the internet, there were only very few HTML tags. These days, there are thousands of them, but realistically, you are only going to be using some of the important ones, such as headings, heading 1 through to heading 6, or the paragraph tag, the P tag. So even though there are many HTML5 tags, once you've narrowed it down to the ones that you actually need to know, then it becomes a lot more approachable. And in the coming lessons, we are going to be covering most of these essentials tags. So don't worry too much about memorizing what each of these tags do. We are going to learn about it as we come across them, and we are going to get started right away on the next lesson. That's it for now, and I'll see you in the next lesson.